Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we bring you a detailed analysis of one of the most defining and devastating conflicts of the 21st century, the Russia-Ukraine war. This war has reshaped global politics, divided nations and left millions struggling to rebuild their lives. Let's explore how this all began and the impact it continues to have on humanity and the world. The origins of the Russia-Ukraine war trace back decades, rooted in political tension, cultural division, and a long struggle for influence between Russia and the West. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine gained independence and began to look toward Europe for trade, democracy, and future security. But Russia, under Vladimir Putin's leadership, saw Ukraine's Western alignment as a direct threat to its geopolitical power. The situation escalated in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea following the Euromaidan protests that overthrew Ukraine's pro-Russian president. This marked the first major turning point. Separatist movements in eastern Ukraine, supported by Russia, led to ongoing violence. Then in February 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion, claiming to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, a justification widely rejected by the international community. The invasion marked the beginning of one of the bloodiest wars in modern Europe. The societal impact on the affected population has been catastrophic. Millions of Ukrainians have been displaced, forced to flee their homes, leaving behind everything they once knew. Entire cities such as Mariupol, Kharkiv, and Bakhmut have been reduced to rubble. Families have been torn apart, fathers sent to the front lines, mothers and children escaping to neighboring countries as refugees. The war has shattered the economy, with unemployment soaring, infrastructure destroyed, and schools and hospitals targeted in relentless. Ordinary citizens have had to adapt to a new reality of constant air raid sirens, curfews, and laws. Communities that once thrived in peace now face daily uncertainty about survival. The environmental consequences have been equally devastating. Explosions, bombings, and the destruction of industrial facilities have released toxic chemicals into the air and soil. Agricultural lands, once the breadbasket of Europe, have been scorched by fire, littered with mines, and contaminated by fuel leaks. The shelling of nuclear power plants and the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam raised global fears of radioactive and ecological disaster. Rivers have been polluted, wildlife habitats obliterated, and forests burned. The environmental scars of this war will outlast the conflict itself, affecting generations to come. Beyond the physical devastation, the psychological and emotional effects on civilians are profound. Children growing up in the shadow of war suffer from trauma, fear, and disrupted education. Adults endure anxiety, depression, and grief as they cope with the loss of loved ones, homes, and livelihoods. For many, the sound of sirens or distant explosions triggers panic attacks and nightmares. Mental health services in Ukraine are overwhelmed, and support for displaced people remains insufficient. In Russia too, many citizens live in fear of repression, censorship, or conscription. The psychological burden of this war stretches far beyond the battlefield. Internationally, the war has triggered one of the most significant geopolitical crises since World War II. Western nations, including the United States and European Union members, imposed unprecedented sanctions on Russia, freezing assets and isolating it from global markets. NATO expanded its presence in Eastern Europe, while Finland and Sweden abandoned neutrality and sought membership for their own protection. Global supply chains were disrupted, especially in energy and food sectors, leading to rising prices worldwide. The war has deepened the divide between democratic and authoritarian states, with countries like China and Iran cautiously aligning with Russia's stance, while most of the world condemns the aggression. The United Nations has repeatedly called for peace, but diplomatic efforts have made little progress as both sides remain entrenched in their objectives. The political consequences extend beyond Europe. The war has reignited discussions about global security, sovereignty, and the power of international law. It has also exposed the fragility of peace in a world still haunted by the ghosts of imperialism and ideology. For Ukraine, the fight is not just for territory, but for its identity, independence, and the right to choose its future. For Russia, it's about reclaiming influence and challenging the Western-led world order. As the conflict drags on, the human cost continues to rise. Millions live in exile, thousands of soldiers and civilians have lost their lives, and the dream of peace seems distant. Yet, amid the ruins, stories of courage, resilience, and solidarity shine through. Ukrainians defending their homeland, volunteers delivering aid, and nations uniting in humanitarian efforts. This war has changed not just Ukraine and Russia, but the entire global landscape. It is a stark reminder that in the struggle for power, it is always the innocent who pay the highest price. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay compassionate, and we'll continue bringing you the truth behind the world's most pressing conflicts.